Hi friends, Mindy here. I have a quick process video for you today. I'm going to be covering another pocket journaling Bible using this special kit from Bythewell4God. This was done in memory of our friend Tanya. She was a friend of the Bible journaling community and especially of Bythewell4God. And she passed away in February of this year from breast cancer. And she liked to create little bags of hope that she gave out, and she would just kind of use these as ministering tools when she was getting treatments and different things. And so to honor her, as October was Breast Cancer Awareness Month, they put out this kit that released with the last devotional kit. And so I'm going to be covering this today, and I just posted, I think, a video a couple days ago showing me doing the one that coordinates with overflowing for November. So I'm not really going to talk through too much of the process of this. I will link the playlist of videos that I have covering these Bibles, but I did want to answer some questions that I get quite a bit about these little Bibles. But first, one of the things I get asked a lot is like kind of what you can do with them. And so these are great gifts. I personally feel like they're something great to give to someone who is maybe just getting started in Bible journaling. It would be a great gift if you wanted to give some scriptures of encouragement to somebody. You could, decorate it and fill out the cards and write a prayer on each one of them. I mean, there's so many different things that you could do. You could, like Tanya, give little bags of hope to people that need encouragement. And so that is what I will be doing with this particular Bible. I'm going to fill out some scriptures, and I have somebody in mind that I will be giving this particular Bible to. And so I would just encourage you to do that. Now, this particular colorway I don't believe is available on the website, but there are multiple different colorways that you can choose if you wanted to do this. This would make a great Christmas gift, graduation gift, just all kinds of things. So you see me do these a lot. I love doing them. I've done word studies in them. I've done scripture like notes. I've done sermon notes in them. So there's just a lot of different ways that you can use them. And then another question that I get asked a lot is about this glue. So I am using the Cocoina glue stick. This is the glue stick that Bythewell4God recommends for doing this project. And I get asked a lot if you could use a liquid adhesive like Barely Art, or even something like Fabri-Tac or something like that. And technically speaking, you can use a liquid glue. The problem with liquid glues is that they can seep through the fabric, depending on the kind of fabric that you're using to cover it. And it can also, if it seeps through, it can stain. Fabri-Tac, I know, can do that sometimes. One of the reasons why Cocoina is so good is because it's actually a paste. So even though it comes in a glue stick form, it's actually based on a paste. You can actually get it in a jar as a paste, and it's a starch-based adhesive. So it's what a lot of bookbinders use to cover their books, like books or journals, is a paste. And the reason for that is it gives you a little bit more working time. So you could definitely try like Barely Arts or Fabri-Tac. If you do that, I would really suggest using a paintbrush or something, or even just your finger, and spreading just a really, really thin coat over it so that you don't have any areas that like where you have adhesive and then a dry spot, because it's just not going to look the same. The coverage won't be the same. But you can definitely try it, use what you have. You could do it in a lot of different ways, but the glue stick is actually, this Cocoina glue stick is actually just really, really helpful for this project. Another question that I get asked a lot is about these little clips. And honestly, I got these clips in the grocery store in like the little automotive section. I know people have seen them at their local Dollar Tree or Dollar Spot, different places like that. I personally like the ones that I have because they're a little bit stronger. The clasp on them is a little bit stronger than the ones that I have purchased from the Dollar Tree. I did get some of those just to try those out. And they still work. And you could even just use paper clips if you needed to, just to kind of secure the fabric around the corners. And that is another thing I get asked is about trimming down the fabric. So the pieces of fabric that Bythewell4God cuts are cut and designed to fit this Bible. So you don't really have a lot to trim. It's just easier if you trim the little section, which is what I'm doing right here, before and after the text block. And I just cut like a little V, a little triangle shape out of the fabric there. And that is just going to make it so that the fabric, when you come up around the cover, it's going to wrap around the text block instead of kind of fighting it. And then you can just tuck that down into the spine, and that does not hurt the Bible at all. It doesn't affect it, the usability of it or anything. So, and then you can just kind of tuck that down in there. So I also do trim just a little bit off of the corners. I don't do it like you would do if you were kind of trying to miter a corner, because these corners are rounded. And so I like to try to, kind of pleat it around the corner, which is what I'm about to do here on film. So you can see I'm just going to trim off just a little bit. The reason I do that is really just to take away some of the bulk after all of this fabric. It gets kind of folded in on itself a couple of times. It just helps it so that it will stay. And once you do that and you get it pleated around and then you put the end papers in, all of that gets covered up. And so you don't see that. So it doesn't, you don't have to worry about it being the prettiest pleat around the corner or anything like that, because it's all going to get covered up with the end papers that Bythewell includes. So you can see here, I'm doing the top and the bottom at kind of at the same time. This is just the easiest way that I have found to do this. And then I add a little bit of adhesive on there, and then I make a fold, and then I add a little bit more adhesive, and I'm adding this directly onto the fabric, and then also down the edge, and then I just kind of wrap it around. And then I will put my little clips back on there just to hold that while I'm working on the other side. And I have not had any trouble with any of the corners coming up or anything. And you can always, at this point, before you add the end papers, you can add ribbon, you could add seam binding, you can add fabric, which is one of the things that I did on the last one, to create a closure for these Bibles, because once you do get the little cards in there, they can get a little bit chunky, just by design. And then if you're like me and you add even more and more layers to your cards, it can get a little bit chunky. So sometimes having a closure is helpful, certainly not necessary, but it does help with that as well. So I'm going to do this other cover here. And then one thing that I also do is off camera. Once I have pretty much gotten this kind of wrapped the way that I want it, I will take the clips off and I will set this Bible under some heavy books for a couple of hours, because even though the glue feels dry, it really just needs some extra time. So, and that just helps everything to stay really nice and flat, and it helps the book stay closed and kind of get, go back into shape basically after I've kind of bent it around and everything. And then it will stay pretty well closed until you start adding in the cards. So you can see here, I'm just gluing all of these layers. This particular Bible, I actually did a couple different fabrics on the front. So I have an extra layer here that I'm having to glue down, but that was not a problem. It's this glue stick still held everything really well, and you don't feel the bulk of it. I just wanted to make sure that that it was kind of held down while I was working on the rest. And here is where I'm going to stick that fabric down into the spine. And I just use a paper clip. You could use an awl. You could use a little like toothpick, I guess. You could, anything that's kind of skinny and narrow that you want to do. You can just kind of tuck it down there. I just use a very fancy paper clip that I have opened up, and it works every time. Sometimes with these, you have to maybe stick your little paper clip down in there and kind of wiggle it around a little bit before the fabric can go in there. But I've only had that happen a couple times where there was just glue from the binding process of the Bible that I just kind of had to get out of there. So one thing I also do with these end papers when I'm folding them is I always use my bone folder to get a really nice crease on them. That just helps them so that I can get them stuck down really well down into the gutter of the spine here when I'm gluing these on. And this is some deli paper that I'm using. You could use wax paper or anything kind of back there just to kind of protect those pages while I'm adding this glue here, because I sometimes get a little wild. So, and I always do it this way. I always add the end paper to the paper part first, and then I will make sure that that is all nice and lined up. And then I add the glue, and then I always kind of tuck my fingers down into the fold there and kind of push it down into the Bible, and then just push it down onto the cover. And then I always reapply my clips and just let that dry for a little bit. And like I said, after all of that is done, and once I have it covered pretty well the way that I want it, then I'll take those clips off and set it under something heavy to finish drying. I usually just leave them kind of overnight, but really within an hour or so, I think they're done. So this glue stick does dry pretty quickly, but it does give you some open time, which is why, again, I prefer to use this to a liquid glue. But, you know, definitely you could use, you could try it with a liquid glue for sure. So I just, for the sake of just kind of safety, I always tend to use this glue stick. It does work. I was asked about a craft glue stick or like a Yoo-hoo, and I have a Yoo-hoo, but I have never actually tried it on a Bible, so I may do that in the future. But if you have any other questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments below, and I'll try to answer them. I'm not a professional at this. I'm certainly not. I just have covered a few of them. So I hope this was helpful. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And until next time, bye.